Hello and welcome. In this video, I'll show you how to use Hexabot Skills together with the Hexabot MCP server. So your AI coding agent can understand Hexabot and help you build, validate, publish, and test workflows. For this tutorial, we'll build a simple lead qualification workflow. Imagine you have a SaaS or an e-commerce website, and you want your chatbot to collect the visitor's name, email, company, or any other useful information. At the end of the conversation, the bot will summarize the request and prepare the lead for the next step. This is an example, but it demonstrates the full idea. Instead of manually writing everything from scratch, we'll ask an AI coding agent to create the workflow for us, using Hexabot-specific knowledge. First, let's talk about skills. A skill is like an instruction package for an AI coding agent. It tells the agent how to perform a specific type of task instead of repeating a long prompt every time. You package the knowledge once and let the agent reuse it. In our case, an Hexabot skill can explain how workflows are structured, how the YAML syntax should be written, how validation rules work, and how the agent should approach the workflow creation. So, this skill answers one important question. How should the agent work with Hexabot? Now, let's talk about MCP. MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It gives an AI coding agent structured access to external systems. In this case, the Hexabot MCP server exposes Hexabot capabilities to the agent. That means the AI working agent can inspect available workflow actions, validate workflow YAML, create or update workflows, and help you publish, run, and debug them. So, while skills tell the agent how to work, MCP gives the agent the actual tools it needs to do the work. First thing first, we need to make sure that we have an Hexabot project up and running. For this, you need to have Node.js installed. If you don't already have it installed, check the link in the description. I recommend installing it using NVM. Once Node.js is ready, you can install the Hexabot CLI globally by running npm install -g Hexabot-AI/CLI. This installs the CLI and allows you to create and manage Hexabot projects. Now let's create a new project. Hexabot create lead -qualifier. The CLI will create a new folder containing the project files. It will also ask us to configure the admin account, so we'll enter the first name, last name, email address, and password. Once the setup is complete, we can move into the project directory and check the generated files. Before connecting the AI coding agent to Hexabot, we need to install the required skills. In this tutorial, we'll install two skills. The first one is the Action Creator Skills. This helps the agent understand how to create Hexabot custom actions correctly. An action is a reusable workflow step. It is JavaScript code that defines the inputs, outputs, and the execution logic for a specific task. This is useful when you want to build integration or implement custom business logic. The second one is the Workflow Writer skill. This helps the agent write valid Hexabot workflow definitions using YAML syntax. In the terminal, we'll run npx skills add hexabot-ai/action-creator. Then we'll configure it for the current project and for Claude Code. After that, we'll install the second skill, npx skills add hexabot-ai/workflow-writer. Again, we'll configure it for the project and for Claude Code. Once these skills are installed, the AI coding agent has the instructions it needs to create actions and workflows following Hexabot conventions. But skills alone are not enough. They explain how to work with Hexabot, but the agent still needs access to the actual Hexabot runtime. There is where the MCP server comes in. Now we'll enable the Hexabot MCP server and connect it to Claude Code. I'm using Claude Code in this demo, but you can also use another compatible AI coding agent such as OpenCode or Codex. I'll leave the documentation link in the description for other setup options. Now, let's open the project in VS Code. Then, we'll navigate to the .env file and make sure that MCP is enabled. You can disable MCP in production by switching the value to false. Claude Code supports MCP servers over HTTP and lets you configure them globally, per use or per project. For project-level MCP server, the configuration is stored in a .mcp.json file. So let's create a .mcp.json file and add the Hexabot MCP server configuration. Next, we can start the project by running Hexabot dev, or depending on your setup, npm run dev. This starts the Hexabot server locally, usually on localhost 3000. Now, we can log in using the admin credentials we created earlier. We'll skip the guided tour and go to the account page where we can create our MCP token. Once the token is generated, copy its value. Then, open a new terminal and export it as an environment variable so Claude Code can use it to authenticate with the Hexabot MCP server. Now, make sure you are inside the project folder and start Claude Code. Once Claude Code is open, run /mcp. We can now see that the Hexabot MCP server is available. At this point, the AI coding agent has two things. First, it has the Hexabot Skills, which teach it how to create actions and workflows. Second, it has the MCP server, which lets it interact with the actual Hexabot instance. Together, these allow the agent to create and validate workflow definitions, inspect available actions, and debug workflow runs. Now comes the fun part. Let's start with a very simple test. I'll ask the agent to create basic conversational workflow that replies with "Hello World" message. The prompt can be something like, "You are a Hexabot expert. Create a simple conversational workflow that replies with "Hello World." The agent will use Hexabot Skills to understand the workflow structure and the MCP server to create it inside or running Hexabot instance. Once the agent finishes, we can go back to the Hexabot workflow builder and check the workflow it just created. We can see that it added a message step. Now, let's test it. When we send a message, the bot replies with "Hello World." So, our AI coding agent is now able to create a working Hexabot workflow. Now, let's do the same thing for a more realistic use case, a lead qualification workflow. The workflow should greet the visitor, collect their contact information, store it in memory, send the contact information to CRM such as HubSpot, and finally let the visitor know that the team will get back to them. We'll break this into two steps. First, we'll ask the AI coding agent to create a custom HubSpot action. This action will later be used as the final workflow step. It will call the HubSpot API and create a new contact or lead. So, let's go back to the Claude Code and ask it to create a new action that stores a lead in HubSpot using the API. The action should collect the name, email, and company. The agent will use the Hexabot Action Creator skill to generate the action following the correct structure. Now, the HubSpot CRM action has been created. Let's go back to the project in VS Code and inspect the Actions folder. we can see the new action generated by Claude Code. It defines the required inputs such as name, email, and company. It also defines the outputs and includes an execute function. This execute function takes the contact information and performs an API to call HubSpot in order to stall the lead. Now, let's go back to the Hexabot UI. If we refresh the page and try to add a new workflow step, we can see that the new CRM action is available on the action drawer. So our custom action is ready to be used in a workflow. Now that we have the HubSpot action, we can ask the AI coding agent to create the full lead qualification workflow. The prompt can be something like, using the Hexabot Skills and the connected MCP server, create a simple lead qualification workflow. The workflow should greet the visitor and ask for their contact information. It should collect the visitor's name, email, and company in memory. Once all the required information is available, it should store the lead in HubSpot using the custom HubSpot action. Finally, it should let the visitor know that our team will get back to them soon. We can also be more specific about the behavior. For example, we can ask the workflow to loop through AI agent step until all required context information has been collected in memory. This way, if the visitor provides only part of the information, the bot can ask for the missing details. Now, the workflow is ready. Let's go back to the Hexabot UI and check that it has been created. We can see the first step, which greets the visitor. Then the workflow waits for the user's reply. After that, it uses a qualification agent to extract and store the contact information in memory. Once the required data is complete, the workflow submits the lead to HubSpot using the custom action we created earlier. Before testing the workflow, we need to configure a few things. First, let's configure the LLM model used by the qualification agent. We open the model configuration, select Amazon Bedrock, and choose the model we want to use. Then we add the required Amazon Bedrock credentials. Now, let's check the memory definition. If we go to memory definitions and edit the generated memory, we can see that the AI coding agent has already created a JSON schema. This schema is used to store the contact information, including the name, email, and company. Now, we return to the workflow. The last thing we need to configure is the HubSpot API token. We add the token to the HubSpot action configuration, submit the changes, and save the workflow. Now, we are ready to test. Let's test the workflow from the chat window. We start by saying hello. The bot greets us and asks for our contact information. I'll answer the name and an email address. My name is John Doe. And my email is johndoe@mail.com. The bot detects that the company name is still missing. so it loops back and asks for missing information. Now I'll provide the company name. My company is the John Company. This time, the workflow has all the required information. It submits the contact to HubSpot and replies that the team will review the information and get back to the visitor as soon as possible. Finally, let's check the HubSpot account. We can see that the contact information has been stored successfully. So the workflow is working end to end. It collected the lead information, stored it in a memory, called the custom HubSpot action, and confirmed the submission to the visitor. That's it. As you saw, this changes the developer experience. Instead of reading the documentation, building a custom integration manually, defining the workflow step by step, and debugging by trial and error, you can give your AI agent a clear prompt and let it do most of the work for you. The skills give the agent Hexabot-specific guidance. The MCP server gives it structured access to the Hexabot capabilities. Together, they turn a generic AI coding assistant into an Hexabot-aware workflow builder. You've now seen how to use the Hexabot Skills and the MCP server to let an AI coding agent build the real workflow automatically. If you want to build AI workflows, chatbot automations, or agentic systems, check out Hexabot and try the MCP setup. That's it for this video.